talk to God because God wants to talk to you. It's a conversational cosmos, and it's a story cosmos. And my story is not my victim story. My story is my unique self story. My unique self story is that sensuality that arouses the sensual, unique voice of the divine whispering in my ear about me and about my life, and inviting me to share my message, my gift, my unique quality of intimacy, my unique perspective, to step up and co-create the world. Right? That's the beginning of the new world. That's the beginning of beginning to play my instrument. It's the beginning of our movement towards a planetary awakening in love. Unique Self Symphonies. Who are we? We are sitting in the heart of the cosmos with our hearts aflame, with this deep knowing both of the peril and possibility of this time. And we understand in our heart of hearts, on the inside of the inside, that it's not about taking a deep dive into prayer, although we're going to take a deep dive into prayer, but it's about feeling the whole and feeling the urgent need at this moment in time to evolve the source code of culture and consciousness in response to the meta crisis, with a deep understanding that it is, in some profound way, it is only telling a new story of value that's real, telling a new, and each one of those words is huge and matters, a new, so it's emergent, it's a story. I begin to understand that story is the core structure of reality, and it's a story of value. And I begin to be able to establish that value is real. And I begin to be able to identify the plot lines of the story and to locate myself within the story. And then my life comes alive. And if I can't locate myself in a story, if I've lost the thread, then I'm somehow lost in the labyrinth. If I can't actually find within me the plot lines of the universe story as they live in me, then I wind up plagiarizing my life. My entire being winds up being filled with grammatical errors, false constructions of sentences, distorted motifs, corrupted plot lines. I'm out of integrity with the vectors of my own life. And so even if I can manifest some degree of success, I actually won't feel alive. I won't feel at home. I won't feel, welcome in the universe. That's what we're here. We're here to be welcome in the universe. We're going to talk about this now. We're going to talk about that on the other side in this master conversation, this master class. But that's what it's about. In other words, the personal crisis of my life and the meta crisis are the same crisis. Does that make sense, anyone? Does that make sense? It's the same crisis. And if I manage to be successful in a sick society, I will still feel sick. Does that make sense? In other words, we've created a society where to be successful in it, I actually need to abandon the authenticity of my life. I need to, in some sense, abandon my heart. I need to, in some sense, lose my deep sense, my deep compass, my deep orienting vision. I need to abandon that. And that orienting vision, that vision of value, that vector towards a victorious life, a triumphant life, if I follow the interior vector of my soul, I will be unsuccessful in most of my life. It's such a big deal. And we've created a society where if I follow the vector of my own interiority, of the plot lines of value, which are the plot lines of the universe, which is ultimately the universal love story. If I follow those plot lines, I will actually be in some sense unsuccessful. I have to actually, right, to be successful, I have to become a kind of apex predator. I don't want to be an apex predator, right? I want to actually be in the crucible of the heart. That's what we're going to talk about a little later today. And so it's like a big deal. And we've created a society where to be successful, I need to be sick. But if I'm actually healthy and whole, I may well not be successful. Does everyone get that? It's like just in this very precise point where there's this variance between the plot lines of the universe, which have been somehow corrupted in the way we've told the story of human life today. Does everyone get that? It's like, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. That's like a very, 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 very tragic disconnect. So that's what we're here to heal. Okay. Now, what we want to do is in these few weeks, and it's we're doing here in One Mountain. All of us together, we've created One Mountain as this kind of seat of the revolution. And the revolution is about healing the disconnect. And that can only be done by actually reorienting ourselves to the plot lines that have never been clearly articulated, because all of the different religions actually ignored the deeper underlying truths and actually focused on their individuated truths, as important as they were, but they all contradicted each other. Modernity tried to create a kind of broader shared sense, but then modernity said, we made it all up. Modernity didn't know how to locate it. And modernity actually didn't know how to recognize that value was real. So modernity thought we could get away with as if. And then postmodernity actually called the bluff of modernity and said, you can't do as if. Doesn't work. We have to actually know that value is real. And postmodernity said value is not real. So therefore, postmodernity opened us up to the triumph of the superficial success story. Like, and that's actually what's moving in the world today, where the notion of success in its most superficial, limited sense, success which achieves a certain level of surface prosperity and status within this one dimension, within this limited lifetime, often at the expense of others, is the goal of life. That is the source of the metacrisis. The metacrisis is built on, is emergent from a story which is about rivalrous conflict governed by win-lose metrics, which itself, when you iterate that again and again, when you iterate that story just literally destroys reality. Okay, so we're here to reorient, to retell that story. And we're going to do it chapter at a time. That's crazy exciting. Does everyone get that? We're going to do it chapter at a time. So the chapter we're going to talk about today, okay, the chapter we want to talk about today is, and this is the fourth time we're going to talk about it, we're going to approach it anew today. We're going to talk about the chapter of prayer and prophecy. We want to work those chapters in the plot line of Cosmos, because prayer and prophecy are two core dimensions of the plot line of reality. Without the plot line of prophecy, without the plot line of prayer, I get lost. That's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to turn to David to resonate the code, but I just want to for a second, can we set intention? I am crazy delighted to be here. And I just want to, if I can, just invite crazy delight, just the delight of the soul. So here's the question. The question is, are we ready? Are you ready to play a larger game? Are you ready to play a larger game? Who's ready to play? Are we ready to play a larger game? Are we ready to play a larger game? Beyond self-help, beyond kind of superficial fulfillment, beyond 7 steps to We're actually participating in evolving the source code of culture and consciousness, which is the evolution of love. That's what we're here to do. Okay. And we are madly delighted. So who's madly delighted? We're madly delighted. And I'm madly delighted. So, oh my God, let's do this. Let's do this. David, resonate the code. It's crazy great to be with everyone. Oh my God. And David, do it a couple times slowly.
All right. So good to be here with everyone. And so delighted. Thank you, Dr. Mark. So here's this week's evolutionary love code, which really sets the framework. It contextualizes the teaching today. And I'll put it in the chat box. Talk to God, because God wants to talk to you, and you want to talk to God. That conversation is the purpose of creation. Talk to God, because God wants to talk to you, and you want to talk to God. That conversation is the purpose of creation. It's like it resonates with even my heart. I hope it resonates with yours. I'll do it one more time. Talk to God, because God wants to talk to you, and you want to talk to God. That conversation is the purpose of creation. Dr. Mark.
Yes. Thank you, David. Thank you. Talk to God, because God wants to talk to you, and you want to talk to God. And this conversation is the purpose of creation. So does everyone get it? If this is true, everything changes. If I actually take this seriously, not as a dogmatic claim, but as a direct gnosis of the nature of reality, everything changes. Okay, that's where we are. That's what it means to be here. We're right here. So let's see it again. Okay, talk to God, because God wants to talk to you. I mean, did you hear that sentence? Talk to God, because God wants to talk to you. That's called prophecy, by the way. God wanting to talk to you, that's prophecy, which is a primary potency of cosmos. Prophecy is a conversation in which the infinite, the divine initiates and the divine invokes. But prophecy is not we think prophecy is like God's reading Aesop's fables out loud, or God's reading the book of Proverbs to you out loud. That is not what prophecy is. Okay? Prophecy is an erotic, passionate, mad love conversation in which the prophet, right, is completely overwhelmed and overtaken and knocked on her feet and spread open, right, and pulsating, right, and trembling ecstatically, right, and throbbing, right, with the God voice. In hearing that voice, the prophet is ravished open and all ruptures disappear, and the ecstatic urgency of rapture takes over, and the conversation obliterates all else. And all of reality is already good. And I realize I'm completely welcome, and it's all already true, and it's all already beautiful. And that one moment of prophecy gives me the experience of, right, truth. That reality has truth in it. And reality has infinite care. And reality is filled with qualities of unimaginable intimacy and goodness. That's the nature of the lover's conversation. So prophecy is God, infinity. He is madly in love with me and is desperate to talk to me. And then I realized something else. And I realized the second part of the code, I want to talk to God. What does it mean I want to talk to God? What does that even mean, that I want to talk to God? It means that I want to be fully received. I want to be fully welcomed. I want to be fully heard. I want my beloved to hang on to every word. I want my beloved to be there after all the witnesses are gone. I want my beloved to embrace all the shattered vessels of my broken heart. I want my beloved to witness my wholeness and my goodness. I want my beloved to know my superpowers. I want my beloved to not just love me, but to madly adore me. All right? Like, I want to talk to God. I want an ultimate lover who knows my name and who loves me desperately. And I want to talk to that lover. And I want to talk to that lover in the face of my human beloved. But I don't want to export that lover only to my human beloved. I don't want to give any separate self that power over me. I want to be madly in love with my human beloved, with my friend, my sister, my brother, my wife, my lover, my old friend, my new friend, my teacher, my colleague, my partner, my outrageous lover, friends, and the bands of outrageous lovers. Yeah, that's all true. But all of those loves are rooted in something deeper, the ultimate lover who I'm desperate to talk to, who knows my name, who made me manifest, who's in love with my unique configuration of beauty and goodness and desire and yearning in this great production of time, in this great manifest world. Ha! Like, ha! There is no seminar in 20 minutes. There's just this crazy, wondrous, insane second right now where we actually can read this code and say, oh my God, all right, here's the code. This is an evolutionary love code. And what does an evolutionary love code mean? We made a date. Remember, David, Christina, we made a date this June, at the end of June, Clavin, we're going to gather all the evolutionary love codes that we've articulated in the last several years. And an evolutionary love code it's a structure of reality. That's what an evolutionary love code is. It's an evolutionary law. It's a code of reality, right? So it's not a dogmatic claim. It's a knowing, it's a gnosis of the interior science that we articulate as an evolutionary love code, which is validated by multiple streams of information through all forms of gnosis, interior and exterior. Okay? So talk to God. This is the evolutionary love code. Talk to God because God wants to talk to you and you want to talk to God. This conversation is the purpose of Cosmos. So what are we saying? We're saying that a plot line of Cosmos is conversation. The way that Lane and I were talking about it the other day, we live in a storied cosmos. I was just finishing writing an introduction to Howard Bloom's book that World Philosophy and Religion Press is going to publish. And it's a science book. So I wrote a long introduction to it, talking the last couple of days, talking about Howard, who calls himself alternatively a stone cold atheist and a materialist mystic. And Howard was kind of the key agent for all the major rock and roll figures of kind of this late 70s, 80s, and 90s. He's also one of the leading figures in NASA, a kind of brilliant scientist, brilliant physicist, brilliant cultural philosopher. I think when Jordan Peterson wanted someone to put a blurb in his first book, he called Howard. So Jordan's an example of someone deeply influenced by Howard's work. And Howard's a lead fellow in our think tank and a dear close friend. And so I was working on Howard's, the introduction to Howard's book and kind of thinking about how do we talk about reality? So in that introduction, I described what I would call a storied cosmos, a cosmos of stories. And story, a key element of story is conversation. So story is the nature of reality. Reality is a story. Reality is not merely a fact, it's a story, one. And two, the key dimension of story is conversation. So it's a storied cosmos, subset, or another way to say that is it's a conversational cosmos, which is the way Howard loves to say it. And the goal of Cosmos is to have a wildly ecstatic, delighted, fully heart-ripped open, erotic conversation. That's what Cosmos is about. Cosmos is about erotic conversations that are free. You're not charged for them. That's what Cosmos is about. It's about wild, erotic conversations, which, as you know, there's 12 billion years of Eros before there's any sex. So erotic conversations are not necessarily sexual conversations. That's just one small subset of erotic conversations. Erotic conversations are conversations with my heart ripped open. And so God's desperate to have an erotic conversation with me. Goddess is desperate to have an erotic conversation with me. The infinite divine, the infinite invisible, which is fully manifest and always visible, what we talk about as God is the infinite intimate, is desperate to have a conversation with me, desperate to talk to me. And I'm desperate to talk to God. So what that means is that one of the plot lines of Cosmos is story, one, two, the conversation, and three, personhood. Cosmos is personal. Does that make sense? Cosmos is personal. There's a personhood to Cosmos, or Richard Feynman, the physicist, talks about the sense of first person all the way down. So, of course, first person at the atomic level is different than you and me talking. That's why we don't marry atoms, and we don't go out with atoms, and we don't do, kind of certain kinds of conversation with atoms. When we're lonely, we don't call an atom. And yet, there's a dimension. Alfred North Whitehead, the mathematician who wrote Principia Mathematica with George Bertrand Russell, Alfred North Whitehead called it prehension. And prehension is this first person desire to touch and be touched that lives, argues Whitehead, ratified by Richard Feynman, the physicist, ratified by the complexity theorist, molecular biologist Stuart Kauffman in a complex paper. There's some sense of first person all through Cosmos. There's a personhood to protons, and there's an evolution of personhood. And personhood means there's this sense of aliveness. There's a feeling. There's a feeling. There's some sense of feeling. Right? A rock doesn't have a feeling, but all the atoms of the rock do in some sense. In other words, there's a sense in which atoms, molecules, macromolecules have feeling. Now, again, not the feeling that a human being does. There's an evolution of feeling. There's an evolution of pathos. There's an evolution of personhood. And personhood moves into the sentient world, right? Into the world of life. And then personhood evolves all through the world of life, through all the stages of the biosphere. And then the biosphere triumphs, right, in the noosphere, the world, the depth of the self-reflective human mind. And then there's this evolution of personhood through all the stages of history. And of course, we experience ontogeny and phylogeny recapitulate each other. So that's a fancy way of saying we experience that evolution of person within our own lives. Right? This evolution of personhood. So reality is personal. Does everyone get that? Does everyone get that? Reality is personal. In other words, it's the sense of the Enlightenment teachers that says, oh my God, we got to move from the personal to the impersonal is a mistake. There's a level one personal. Does that make sense? There's level one personal. And that's personality. Separate self personality. And that level one personal is reaching for something. Now, I got to clarify that level one personal in order to access the personal field of the cosmos. So I've got to go from level one personal, which is all of me, separate self, and I've got to access this larger field, which the Enlightenment teachers call the impersonal, but it's a mistake. It's not the impersonal. It's the infinite personal that holds all the personhoods. Does that make sense? Does everyone get that sentence? Stay with me. So as I'm in the personality, so that's kind of level one. I'm in personality, okay? Then I go to level two. So we're going to call the level two impersonal. But by impersonal, we mean it's not merely individuated separate selves. So it's impersonal in the sense that it's not level one personality. Who's got that? Who's tracking that? Am I kind of alone by myself here? Kind of stuck at my desk and kind of like everyone kind of abandoned me here and feeling bad. And I got to go call my therapist and everyone lost, and I couldn't keep everybody with me and I couldn't explain it clearly. And all old traumas are going to have to come up. And I'm going to start crying. Hello. Okay. Okay. All right. Here we go. Okay. So we get that. So that's level one personal. Then I go to the impersonal. We good? That's level two. Okay. So now level three or station three, station one, the personal, station two, the impersonal, but the impersonal in the sense it's beyond the merely personality of station one. And now we get to level three, station three. Now we reclaim the personal on the other side of the impersonal. Does everyone get that? Who's got that? Isn't that gorgeous? We reclaim at station three, the personal on the other side of the impersonal. So in other words, at station three, station one is separate self, personal. Station 2, true self, impersonal. It's the total number of true selves is 1. I'm beyond the personal. But then I get to station 3 and I reclaim this higher individuation in the context of this larger union within the field. So I'm no longer just a separate self. I'm in the field. I'm in the field of personhood. And out of that field of personhood, I individuate as, oh my God, as me. Does everyone get that? Here I am. So now I'm the individuated personal that comes out of the field. So that field's the field of Eros. That field's the field of love. Now I'm the individuated personal. Now I'm unique self. Now stay close, stay close. So what that means is from that place of the individuated personal, I can hear prophecy. Okay, this is so deep. It's so crazy deep, okay? You can't hear prophecy at the level of separate self. Prophecy is not clear. You can't hear a clear prophecy. You can sometimes get what's called a aspaklaria de lo nahara, a distorted prophecy. But you can't get aspaklaria de nahara, a clear prophecy, when you're not at that place which is the personal beyond the impersonal. So what we call in the canonical texts of the Solomonic mysteries, false prophets, are people who are hearing prophecy either at the level of separate self personality, which is bounded, right, in the broken structures and the fragmented places, the broken vessels of the skin encapsulated ego, which hears, but you can't get the transistor clear, right? The vibrational waves, the sound waves are not coming in clearly. So you're getting a distorted signal. Or you have a second kind of prophet who is hearing from this place of the impersonal. It's the personal beyond the impersonal. So it might be this place of this ideology, which erases the personal, and this place of kind of the state or the religion or the kingdom, right? Or the tribe, which effaces the personal. So we can get a prophecy from there, but it's from this impersonal place where the personal has been effaced, and you're going to get a distorted prophecy there as well. You can hear something, you can hear a voice, but it's distorted. You can't have a real conversation unless it's face to face. Moses speaks to God face to face, and face to face means the clarification of the face. The word face, panim, means interior. It's the clarification of interiority, which is the personal beyond the impersonal. That is the antenna which receives prophecy. Does that make sense? Okay, so I apologize. I'm going to make everybody crazy now, okay? All right, so we're going to make everybody crazy now? Okay, so I'm going to tell you this little secret. I'm a prophet. I'm a prophet. I know it's been a long time. I didn't want to share that, but I'm a prophet. Just saying. Don't kill me. Prophets get killed. Now, you can be a prophet too, and you should be a prophet. But you can't be a prophet without the circumcision of the heart. And the circumcision of the heart means this willingness to sacrifice, but I've got to somehow surrender my trauma. I got to surrender the recursive loops of my victim's story. But I got to surrender the comfortable old slippers of my identity that keep me closed down in the personal before the field of the impersonal. I've got to be willing to somehow surrender into this larger field, which I've done time and again, and I'm inviting you to do, but not in order to die in that separate field. I've got to start by dying. I die on the cushion, says the Zen master. I got to start by dying, and then I'm reborn. That's where the idea of being reborn came from. I'm reborn into, right, my unique self. And my separate self, my psychological personality is actually searching for something. It's looking for something. It's reaching for something, right? I've got to experience the bliss crucifixion of the ego in order to be resurrected into my unique self. And my unique self is the antenna, the unique antenna of the search engine of the cosmos, which is listening for the divine conversation that addresses you directly. And when you hear the divine conversation that addresses you directly, you begin to be a prophet. And then you have something that you desperately need to share. There's a conversation you desperately need to have. You begin to become an artist. An artist is a form of prophet when the artist gets clear. Artists think that they can just be in their pathos, they can just be in their pathology, and the more pathological you are, the better artist you are. Not true. When you clarify your pathology into the root of your pathos, and then you follow the root of your pathos home to the root of your gorgeous, wild, unimaginably beautiful, crucified, resurrected, unique self, then you become an artist. Right? There's not all artists are the same, just like not all prophets are the same. You can have false artists like you have false prophets. We think there can be false prophets, no false artists. Not true. It takes everything to be a great artist. You have to be a prophet to be an artist. And we are here to be social artists, spiritual artists. That's what it means to be Homo Amor. It's to be a spiritual social artist, to be the artist of myself, to engage in my own self-creation, which means I've got to access and find and reach for the personal, the irreducibly unique self, which is the quality of the personal beyond the impersonal, through which I access, I can hear, I can dial into the voice of prophecy that personally addresses me directly. That's a conversation that exists in Cosmos. I swear to you that it's true. I swear to you that prophecy is real. And prophecy means you have a direct experience of being personally addressed by the infinite intimate that knows your name and is madly in love with you. That's conversation. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? That's conversation. That's prophecy. That's prophecy. And the poet has to reach for the prophetic. But poetry is at its best prophecy, but at its worst, it's lazy. Right? We don't want lazy prophecy. We want the bliss crucifixion that leads to resurrection. And I want to talk about what that means actually in our 2:00 conversation. What is that bliss crucifixion? What is that sacrifice? We have to talk about that. I mean, it's wildly exciting. It's wildly beautiful. It's a sacrifice which doesn't kill me, but births me. I just want to establish today this principle. We need to be prophets. We need to re-invoke the capacity for prophecy, which means simply that I am addressed directly by a cosmos, right, which is infinitely personal. And this is the point. When people say, okay, God's not personal. No, God's not personality. God's not a big separate self-personality in the sky or in the depths. But God's not impersonal. God's impersonal. It's like we say God's not physical. When we say God's not physical, we mean the concreteness of the properties of physicality are not concrete enough to exhaust the utter substantiality of God. Physicality is too insubstantial to be the substantial body of the Christ, of the Christos, of Vishnu, of Rama, of Sita, right? Of the earth and sky. Right, of the God force. The God force is infinitely substantial, and the physical is too insubstantial to be the divine. That's what we mean when we say God's not physical. When we say God's not personal, we mean the separate self, skin encapsulated egoic personality. That's beautiful. It's reaching for something, but it's not personal enough to be the divine. I have to first surrender in the bliss crucifixion into the field, and I'm absorbed by the field, and then the field births me into my irreducible uniqueness, which is the infinite quality of my infinite personhood, which then becomes the antenna, the attractor, the strange attractor, that which allures the infinite divine who desperately wants to talk to me and whisper sweet nothings, filled with everything, right, into my ear and my ear alone, in that intimate glance and that divine whisper that's intended for me from the beginning of all of eternity. And all of eternity is sufficient, and all of manifestation is sufficient for that divine whisper to be whispered in my ear and received. All of reality has realized its intention. And that's what the mystics meant when they say, Bishvili nivra olam. A person who's alive has to say, the world was created for me. Bishvili. The world was created for me, and the word bishvil means for my path, which is my unique capacity to hear the voice. Wow. Now, If the voice that I hear doesn't resonate with the larger unique self symphony, I'm probably distorted. But the voice that I hear, if I'm really listening, that voice that I hear has a message. And I am the messenger. And what happens to most of us is we are the messenger who forgot the message. But the message is encrypted in my unique self, and that message becomes available for me through prophecy. And prophecy is encoded in reality, and it's activated personally by me when the voice addresses me personally. And I want to be really clear. This voice is not a recording that was left for me. The voice is alive now, addressing me right now. It's not a recording that I activate. It's not mechanical. It's not that I've pressed a button and activated some music intended for me. No. No, she is there. He is there. The infinite divine intimate is there, holding a violin, holding a trombone. Right? I'm thinking about dating myself when I was like 3 years old. Ian Anderson. What was that? Jethro Tull, right? Oh my God. It's just kind of ready to play. I'm ready to play. And I'm ready to play. And she's waiting to play music for me. Now, right now, she wants to play music for me, which is the music of prophecy, which is available, which is activated. I arouse that unique incarnation of she that addresses me personally, and that's desperate to be in conversation with me. That's just the first line of our code. Do you get that? And let's go back to our code. We'll finish here. Let's go back to our code. Where's our code? I'm looking for it. Where's our code? Talk to God because God wants to talk to you. It's a conversational cosmos, and it's a story cosmos. And my story is not my victim story. My story is my unique self story. My unique self story is that sensuality that arouses the sensual, unique voice of the divine whispering in my ear about me and about my life, and inviting me to share my message, my gift, my unique quality of intimacy, my unique perspective, to step up and co-create the world. Right? That's the beginning of the new world. That's the beginning of beginning to play my instrument. It's the beginning of our movement towards a planetary awakening in love, unique self symphonies. Wow.